Well, that sucked.
Yeah. I really wanted to like this movie. And I haven't even played the games.
What? You just told me that you played the games before seeing this.
I never said... God damn it.
I swear to God.
Will you... Okay, open your ears. I said the very first Blizzard game I have ever played was Overwatch. And that...
You never told me that.
Yes, I did.
I swear to God, but whatever.
The only other thing you might be confusing what I said was that I have played other MMORPGs in the past, and I have not enjoyed them. It's a particular genre that I do not enjoy because I enjoy the satisfaction of finishing a game, whereas MMORPGs are designed in particular to go on for an eternity. Obviously, people like that. You know, it's like, you know, unlimited entertainment. But for me, I like, you know...
As opposed to this, where there's no entertainment.
Well, not... Jeez.
Yeah, we just got out of seeing Warcraft, and by God, what a mess. Like,
it is a fucking mess.
The only... Yeah, screw you audiences who gave it an 81% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but
wait, really? Is that all? That's what they gave it?
81, yeah. But critics gave it 24. But
well, okay, is that lower or is that lower than Pixels?
Way lower than Pixels.
No,
Pixels only got like 60 something.
Okay, because I saw Pro Jared's review of it, and he said this movie being lower than Pixels is insulting because it's nowhere near as bad as Pixels. And to be fair, it isn't. And some people are even comparing this to Battlefield Earth.
Not even close.
I wouldn't even say it's that bad
because it actually has effects that are believable.
This
is way better than Battlefield Earth.
We'll get to the effects in a sec, but it's really not even anywhere near the worst video game adaptation movie out there. But
what do you think that's heralded as?
Heralded as?
Which movie?
Which movie? I don't know. I mean, off the top of my head, I think Mortal Kombat Annihilation's pretty bad. But
I haven't seen any other video game movies. At least not that I can remember.
There are some fair ones. I mean, like
at least entertaining,
at least decent. Like the Tomb Raider films come to mind. They're all right.
Well, again, that's because you have Angelina Jolie with them.
The first Silent Hill movie I thought was okay,
but then they just got ridiculous.
Yeah. And this, I guess, if I'm being generous, it's just
It's ridiculous. But it's what it is.
But it's also, it does so many stupid things. And I said this to you walking out of the theater. The thing that pisses me off most about this movie is that it actually makes me regret giving it a chance. Because I've talked with people who have played the Warcraft games, who are very interested in the lore and everything, and they said, yeah, this movie's pretty good and everything. And it's like, well, okay, I'll try to think about this from the perspective of the people who like the games, and maybe try my damnedest to think, well, I'm sure this is probably a lot more interesting elsewhere. And maybe it is, but this movie does a fucking terrible job of introducing anything besides the orcs. Like, the orcs are the only thing in this movie that are very clearly defined and reasonably developed, and, you know, have their boundaries, their traditions, and other stuff. But when it gets to the human side of things, not only does it become boring, but it becomes so damn confusing. And I am not someone who is easily confused in movies, okay? I'm not the kind of guy who watches Inception and is like, huh? The whole way through it, unlike other people.
Yeah, one of his pet peeves is that he hates people who say, oh, I can't follow it, which it can be applicable to some people in some scenarios.
They'll say that for relatively straightforward movies. This is not a straightforward movie.
The story is all over the place.
This is like watching a season finale of Game of Thrones without watching a single episode before.
Pretty much. Yeah, nothing in this makes sense at all.
They throw around words, characters, names, kingdoms, all this stuff. And I'm sure to people who are very acquainted with the games is like, "Oh, yep, that's it. I know that." But to someone like us, we're just like, "What the hell
is going on?
What's going on? What are they talking about?" It's like, "What's happening? What does that mean?"
From what we understood, the plot is that there's a clan of orcs who travel from world to world trying to survive, and they travel through this portal which is used and powered by the souls and bodies of the previous inhabitants. So they take a portal to a human world, which looks exactly like another fantasy franchise, which I will get into in a moment, where they try and destroy humans.
Can I just tell you something?
What?
Lord of the Rings was not the first fantasy.
I don't give two shits. This looks exactly like it. Anyway, they transfer to a human world, and big shock, they want to fight and like try and do war shit. Nobody cares. It's generic.
Well,
it's very recycled.
I care a little bit about orcs.
I did not.
About the orcs.
Yes.
The humans can... Jesus. I couldn't even tell you the names of any of the humans. But I guess, to be fair, I can't tell you many of the names of the orcs either. But at least the orcs were the only part of the movie that actually held my attention. That being said, the CGI on them ranges from being passable to wonderfully shit. Just
wonderfully shit. Lovely
Yeah.
contradiction. The effects I thought were fine. They weren't noticeably like bad. Yeah, they were. Yeah, it's obvious that it's just a bunch of computers, but
and a bunch of motion capture work. But I mean, you can tell these were people in those like ping pong ball suits.
Yep.
But you know, here's the thing. When people talk about, "Oh my God, this movie uses CGI, that's stupid. Why don't they use practical effects?"
It can work.
It absolutely can work. And usually the best thing to do is have a combination of the two. I mean, most great movies with wonderful effects have that. But
Fury Road, Jurassic Park, amongst others.
But that being said, usually practical effects or CGI should be reserved for things that would be otherwise damn near impossible to do in practical effects.
Exactly.
Making the orcs, you know, their faces does not seem like that challenging of a practical effect. So why are you CGIing everything? And I know there's probably millions upon millions of dollars being poured into the CGI, but it still makes the movie look cheap when even something as simple as a dwarf has to be CGI'd. A dwarf that looks exactly like Gimli. And granted, the only Warcraft knowledge that I have before this is from the South Park episode. The South Park parody episode of Warcraft. But it does look similar to the dwarf in there. But by God, they changed him up to look a lot like Gimli. That's all I was thinking. I wanted him to just yell, "With my axe." You know, crap. What was I gonna say? Shit, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. Okay, so the dwarf being CGI. This is what I mean when I say that something so simple to be done practically doesn't have to be CGI, and when it is, it makes your movie look cheap. Regardless of the millions of dollars being poured into it, it just looks cheap when you CGI everything.
And the dwarf's CGI looks like shit. Even though they're not around that much, it does look like shit.
And one of the stupidest, absolute most moronic defenses against the use of CGI in this movie, or how it looks, or you know, what people are saying that's why it works is because it's from a video game.
Bullshit. It doesn't fucking matter.
Because so it's like these are just supposed to be like in-game graphics, and they're like, exactly.
If you want,
Fuck
if you
off.
if you want
No.
if you want in-game graphics, play the fucking game. Don't show it in a movie.
Exactly. And besides, I'm currently playing PS4 games with real time rendering in-game graphics that look better than this. I should say not everything. Not everything looks bad in this movie. The CGI, not all the orcs and stuff, but
the backgrounds look fine. The fight scenes look pretty cool.
But there are times when it breaks into things that just look so fake. It just looks so wonderfully shit. And there's very, very little attempt to sell you on the believability of it.
Nothing in this looks like it could actually possibly exist. And everybody constantly says, oh, it's supposed to be fantasy. You're already supposed to suspend your disbelief. The reason for visual effects is to make it feel like they're real and actually still have the believability that the viewer can put themselves in this world.
The only way I would think that everything CGI in this movie would be passable if the whole movie was animated. And watching this in my seat, I was wondering why didn't they just animate the whole movie? Because more than half of it is all CGI. So then scrap the live action characters and just make everything animated.
Then it flows smoothly instead of everything
it is
just looking like a gigantic contradiction.
It is so jarring the first time that what's her name? Corona, my Sharona. When she shows up and she's the first live action piece you see, she stands out so much from everything else because everything else around her is CG.
I swear to God, I thought she was CG when we first saw her.
And it just looks so fake. It does not work.
She's the only creature who is human and actually looks real. But as soon as you put her up next to the people who are supposed to be like her, you can obviously see how fucking fake the other ones are.
Exactly. And another thing that sells everything on being fake is that, being a half-breed of an orc, she's obviously got the overbite, but
the overbite and the fangs.
But it does not what makes it so obviously fake is that the actor is obviously struggling to talk with that overbite. She talks like this because she's got something shoved in her mouth, when in reality, you have lived with this all your life. You have talked with this all your life. It should not be a problem.
Another thing, she speaks broken English right away once she meets the humans, and then 2 scenes later, perfect fucking English, perfectly fine.
What was the point? Oh my God, that brings up another point. This movie does one of the stupidest things I've ever seen done with fantasy languages. And it is so needlessly confusing.
Wait, are you talking about when the humans meet up with Duratan right away?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, God.
So apparently orcs don't speak English. Well, no, they do speak English, but they don't. What? What do you mean by that? They speak English by themselves as they're talking to one another.
The only excuse I can kind of conjure up for that is that the film is translating their English for the audience.
Exactly.
But then, as soon as they have an exchange, human-orc, it's perfectly fine.
Yes.
Okay, hang on. It's first translation. Duratan speaks, and then Corona, her real name is Corona, but I just want to call her Corona because I really wanted a lot of beer during this.
My Sharona.
But yeah, they're communicating back and forth. Duratan is speaking foreign and Corona's translating, but then the camera just slowly zooms in on Duratan and he's speaking English again. And we can barely hear what Corona is translating out to the humans, because guess what? It's already fucking English. We can understand it.
At first I thought, wait a minute, you know English, but they're refusing not to say it, and when he's yelling at her, it's like, don't you dare speak our language. Was he yelling at her for speaking their language or for speaking the human language to the human? And then
he slowly turns into English.
And then when he starts shouting English, it's like, what the fuck is going on? It's only a few scenes after that when the humans meet up with the orcs that one of the main orc characters is speaking Orcish, I guess, whatever their language is, and then she's translating, and then it's like, okay, so you guys have always been talking Orcish this whole time, and the movie's just automatically been translating it for us, and then it does the same thing where it just kind of zooms in, and then suddenly he starts speaking English again. It's like, that is just needlessly confusing and complicated and kind of stupid, and frankly, it kind of kills the world building. You should have just had them speaking Orcish the whole time. Or make it in world that they know English, even though that wouldn't make sense. But
something that this movie
stick to one. Don't do that stupid. Oh,
something this movie can learn from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Remember how how throughout almost all of it they were speaking in sign language the whole time?
Yeah.
And then they slowly translated into English for how they were able to learn it.
Yeah.
That's something that this movie could have done. Yeah. But no, they think that their audience is too goddamn slow, or what I really think, they just wanted to take this entire epic story and shrink it.
Yeah,
I gotta get this off.
They probably did have to condense.
Yeah, they tried to condense a giant epic saga.
And why would they?
Well, that should have been lengthened out to a span of a couple movies, or I gotta get something off my chest.
Okay,
This really wanted to be fucking Lord of the Rings. Don't you say a word until I'm done. Jesus Christ, this wanted to be Lord of the Rings so bad. It has the exact same look. It has some of the exact same characters, just with different names. And Jesus Christ, it wants to be this big, epic thing, but it ends up being this ridiculous schlock because they don't know how to pace out a story, how to develop characters, and how to have the audience
not world build,
and how to have the audience actually give a shit about what's happening. The human characters are comprised of a brave knight, Aragorn, a fucking
doofy ass warlock,
the black-haired kid.
Yeah.
Some apprentice of this guy named Medivh, who looks exactly like Boromir and has the capabilities. You said Sauron, I said Gandalf, because they're the only magic users.
Well, I say Sauron because, shock of all shocks, this wizard isn't.
He becomes evil.
Now, here's my problem with that, and it's not a It's not the reason why I don't consider it a spoiler is because it is so unbelievably fake, this act he's putting on, this heroic thing where he's about as useless as Raiden from the Mortal Kombat series. He's similarly supposed to be the protector of realms, and he's just the god of useless. And same with this guardian, this guy who's supposed to protect the realm. He barely shows up to battle. He acts like a dick constantly, to the point where when he does
Medivh.
Yes.
Okay.
When his apprentice brings him news, he throws him around the room like a fucking ragdoll. And I'm like,
why are you here?
What the fuck is your problem?
Again, story. They don't bother trying to develop anything. So they think that they can just spout these pieces of information and expect everyone to believe it.
So when the twist comes around that he's evil, it's in no way shocking. And it's certainly not believable that they have the whole, no, that's impossible kind of thing.
He burns his apprentice's research as soon as he's catching on to it.
Yeah. So, again, and by the way, the other thing this movie does is that it tries to tell two parallel stories that are kind of evolving in the exact same way with the humans and the orcs, because the same thing happens with the orcs where like, maybe our leader that's already shown to be super fucking evil and care nothing, have zero value of life for both orcs and anything around him
might be evil.
Yeah, holy shit, who'da thunk?
Dun dun dun.
So that that's for me is even more ridiculous than the wizard thing, because at least this fucking orc just was born to be evil.
Yeah, the evil orc, he wears a fucking cloak the entire time. He's got hordes coming out of his back, and he's the only magic user throughout the entire orc people. Yeah, he might be evil and abuse his power. Doi!
And then when they find out, they're like, we gotta find some way to stop this power, and they're thinking they can do that by teaming up. The orcs teaming up with the humans, and that's mostly what the plot is made out of. And then when these guys go full on evil, then it becomes a case of well, now we gotta put them down for reals. But then the heroes have to sacrifice themselves, and again, it's trying to tell two stories that are evolving pretty much are playing out the exact same way,
and trying to make it so big and epic when they can't even get any audience investment into it.
Yeah,
they rush
so hard.
You can't follow any of it. Nothing makes sense until probably about 30 or 40 minutes into it, because they just throw information in short little specks. There probably isn't a scene in the first half hour or 40 minutes that doesn't last longer than 5 minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes, which results in a confused audience, which equals no investment into what is happening with these characters, and characters not making any purpose. Perfect example, the Aragorn guy, and he looks almost exactly like Aragorn, just throw some longer hair on him, and at one point he looks like Leo from The Revenant, just sitting in a jail cell. But yeah, he has a son. We meet him in a tavern. Yeah, fucking parallel to Lord of the Rings. Meet him in a tavern for only like a few minutes. He's a soldier, okay. Meet him like 40 minutes or an hour later. Oh, he's injured during battle. You're all I have left. Okay, when were we gonna be notified of this? And then 10 minutes later, oh, he dies. And they spend so much time on it. I don't give two shits. I've only spent 5 minutes knowing this person, and you expect me to give a shit about someone I don't know, which equals someone I don't care about, and another person who I'm supposed to feel sorry for, but don't know their conflict. They only want you to feel sad for the idea of a son getting murdered in front of his father by the rival clan that they're supposed to be helping out.
They introduce a character just to kill him, and it's so fucking transparent. I mean, alright, so, alright. One thing that I don't get is that these kinds of movies, these kinds of games that don't really have as much of a set story, at least I don't think there's as much of a set story so much as it's just lore. And the difference between story and lore is lore is essentially like a collective whole of a world, essentially. So these kinds of movies are ideal, I keep saying movies. These kinds of games are ideal to make movies out of, because you don't have to worry about making it match the games as much as you just kind of take these similar things and bring them to life in movie form. And I just can't believe they fucked it up as hard as they did. And
when you have a game like this, that's sort of, when it doesn't have set boundaries, you have so many possibilities. But you try and make it like one of the most famous fantasy series in the world, and I know you said that a lot of stuff is like Lord of the Rings. They have the fucking eagles in this. They have
that wasn't an eagle, that was a griffin.
Oh yeah, they also try their hand at Harry Potter in this. They have
Harry Potter isn't the only series with griffins in it.
I don't care. He looked like the fucking birds that they have in this look like Buckbeak. They look exactly like Buckbeak.
Jesus Christ.
And they have the magic that they use. It looks exactly like the fucking magic that the Dementors use. Like
What? That's what you were thinking?
Yes.
I was thinking Mortal Kombat, your soul is mine. But of all the things that you're getting pissed about that I'm not, you know, I don't think that just because a fantasy, it's for me, it's like saying every single zombie movie is a ripoff of Night of the Living Dead.
No, but then again, that's also something that I can point out because this movie isn't bringing out any originality, so much so that I can point out anything that they're borrowing.
But is it really fair? Because World of Warcraft is relatively old at this point. I mean, granted, not older than some of these other source materials like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, but still, it's for me, it's hard to say, oh my God, there's wizards and magic and you know,
I'm not having anything against that. You can have that, but just try and be original so that I don't have to rely on thinking about other movies to try and fill up the void in this.
But I feel like you're just taking basic ideas and trying to say, oh, that's just like Lord of the Rings.
Not when they are so goddamn similar.
All right, well,
that was one thing that I like hated / enjoyed about this, is that I could point out stuff that was similar, and because everything else is so boring, either boring, non-developed, or you just don't fucking care. That's mostly me through this. I did not give a shit about anything besides Duratan. The only reason, and big shock, the only reason I like Duratan is because he's developed. They actually decide to give him the most backstory, and granted, you don't need to see or hear that much backstory in order to understand a character. Case in point, Tim Burton's Batman, we still feel for him because we're actually guided through a journey through his psyche and through what he's gone through. But they don't decide to do any of that with the human characters who come second to these half-assed CGI orcs.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times this movie will just kind of break into, oh yeah, by the way, here's a story that happened to me once when I was a kid, and it's done so lazy, and it just does not make me care. I guess that's the best way to describe this movie, is that it has all this rich lore laid out in front of it, and it just kind of throws it together in one big melting pot and slaps it on, and what you get is just a fucking mess. I really did want to just give this movie a pass. I know it doesn't sound like I do, but the way that everyone's praising this movie makes me think that's like, oh, I'm sure the Warcraft games are very, very rich in this, very rich in lore and very well made in this kind of stuff. And I was hoping that it would at least some of that would come through in this movie. It doesn't. And you know what I even have a little bit of a theory going on. Since we know Blizzard did get involved in the creation of this movie, maybe some of this stuff was deliberately gimped or deliberately went unexplained, just to give possibly to give some non-game players like us the idea of, maybe we should go play the game to figure out what's happening or who this
Advertising.
is. Possibly. I mean, that does happen sometimes in adaptations, where it's like we don't want to outright replace this thing because we want people to get both and enjoy both.
God.
So, yeah.
Okay, me going into this, you know how you have your already like tampered expectations of rom-coms?
Yes.
That's my thing with video game movies. I kind of go.
See, I don't get that. I really do not get that. Why are people so there's this,
because it's so hard to do a video game adaptation when most of the time they want.
It is not harder to make a video game adaptation than it is to make a book adaptation or a comic book adaptation or anything else. A play, any medium.
Nobody knows how to do it right though.
Okay, just because they keep fucking it up doesn't mean that it can't be done. It's like, okay, all right. Nobody here's a pretty solid defense. Nobody denies that there's some pretty damn good, solid video game comic books out there, right? I mean, I would be hard pressed to find someone who says no, there doesn't exist a good video game comic ever. In the same way that people say there doesn't exist a good video game movie. So if that's the case, and we know that comic books can be translated well into movies, is it really that much of a stretch to say that video games can work as movies? I mean, I know there are some games out there that are so pure in its medium that it would be almost impossible, or at least it just would not work. A similar thing happened with a game called Eco, where it was turned into a book, and people are like, well, its quality of a book is questionable, but it's just not the Eco because that whole game was like made to be a game and nothing else. But Warcraft, again, like I said, because this is just all lore, it can be done as a movie, but frankly, all you just needed was to play around in this world that Blizzard has created, but you didn't do it well. And this really, oh man, again, Ratchet and Clank really burnt me pretty hard too, because I had high hopes for that movie to be good. I thought for sure that it was going to be the movie that I was going to rub in everyone's faces to say, see, I told you, video game movies can work. And it just did the complete opposite. Yep. And Angry Birds, I didn't even
That doesn't even count as a video game.
It does. It is a video game.
I love Angry Birds, but Jesus Christ, that's not a fucking video game.
I'm amazed they made that into a full-length feature film,
which got better reviews than Ratchet and Clank,
which is so sad. And now we got this, which is similarly just kind of instills that stereotype that video games can't ever be made into movies. Just deal with it. It's just, and I can't disagree with them when this crap keeps getting made. And of course we still got Assassin's Creed by the end of this year, which does not look very good.
But does have Michael Fassbender.
But it does not look very good.
All right, back to this movie. Even though there are a lot of moments that did really aggravate me and piss me off, there were some funny moments, and not the intentionally funny moments, the unintentionally funny moments.
Because the intentional comedy in this is fucking cringeworthy.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's that socially awkward, but
then again,
awkward kind of fucking humor. God damn it.
Although we might not be the majority, but we were part of the minority who were not laughing during any of the funny parts. But I was laughing at most of the ridiculous shit that happened, like some of the people just randomly dying or getting fucking knocked in the head with hammers. One of the funniest moments is Duratan has a child in the beginning and is raised throughout most of the movie. His fucking wife takes her son away from all the madness, puts him in a basket, and lays him down the river for his future. Jesus Christ, how fucking
No, not Jesus Christ, Moses.
Moses!
Get your biblical stories right.
I directly told him during the middle of that, Moses.
I don't know. I don't think anyone could deny it's supposed to be drawing the parallel. It's green Moses.
It's green elf-eared Moses.
Yep.
It's
gonna be because he's an orc. It's gonna be the opposite. He's not gonna free the slaves. He's gonna create slaves.
And there's 2 sets of Jesus imagery in the span of 2 minutes. Corona is hailed as a hero and crowd surfs.
She crowd surf. I want to take that scene and I want to put some death metal music to that.
And the guy who she has to kill at the end, he's taken away with his arms at his sides, and after he dies,
And
he's
just
the
like a ragdoll.
He's the savior. He created peace. Oh God. There is ridiculous
I don't know what
like
people
that.
are saying when they say this movie's taking itself too seriously. There's a lot of comedy in this, and it did not make me laugh, not once.
The intentional comedy is bad, but the unintentional stuff is actually pretty good. And if you are someone who likes to pick apart a lot of movies and just laugh at its flaws, I can actually recommend this, because most of the time I was laughing at its flaws and at its similarities. Yeah, this is still me. Shut up. I saw so many similarities between this and other stuff. I was laughing at that, and I was laughing at the ridiculous moments. I only cared about one character. I sort of biased. I went in going to hate this. I didn't regret my time. At least I saw it, and it is bad. It's pretty damn bad.
It's dog shit.
It's pretty bad, but
if you're a fan of the video games, I wouldn't doubt.
If you're a fan of the video games, you're gonna see it anyway.
You're probably gonna see it anyway. You don't need our recommendations or not, or lack thereof. But
although I would love to see what this movie is like if I were drunk or on anything else, because this could actually be a fun movie just to bitch at and like pick apart or whatever.
Yeah, I got nothing else to say. I mean, what else? It sucks at developing it, at creating. Fucking hell! It sucks at world building.
It's taking away your creative ability. That's how bad it is.
It sucks at world building. It's got some bland, uninteresting, boring characters. It is needlessly confusing in places. It is painfully generic in other places, and frankly, otherwise, it just wastes a lot of what could be rich, intense, epic, everything. Just does not do it.
And it also wastes the talent of the guy who directed Source Code. That's what
its
its
special effects range from fine to
bad, questionable. Why? I don't know. Honestly, I really can't recommend seeing this movie. I kind of enjoyed my time with it. I mostly went in.
Funny how you went in ready to hate this movie, and I'm the one who went in. It's like, all right, I'll give you a chance.
It's because you set your expectations too high.
I didn't set my expectations too high.
Well, you ended up being disappointed in the end.
I was gonna give it a fair shake. That's it.
I will say that I did try.
I raised out my hand in friendship, and it spat in my mouth.
Either that, or you could have just said, "Slap the hand away."
That too. Speaking of, funny moment when the warlock gets a message from some other ancient goddess, whatever. It doesn't do a good job explaining itself. She basically says, "You must save the world with the power of friendship."
And the quote that they constantly use. Like
from lightness comes darkness, and from darkness comes light.
They say that 3 times.
From light to dark, to light to dark,
dark to light. And he leaned over to me during the middle of it, and he said, "They're gonna use the power of friendship to defeat a god,"
which is basically the plot of every single JRPG out there. Also, no Leroy Jenkins reference. Not one.
Damn it. Ugh. Well, we gotta wrap this up. It's about 1:45 in the morning.
Yeah. So, ultimately, this movie can just fuck off.
It's bad.
Even if it's not the worst of the worst, it's just bad.
But if you want to give an opinion on it, see it. Don't like judge it based off of like everything else.
Yeah.
Actually see it and then you can give an opinion. All right. Later.
See ya.